Alright, so I finished my basic survey of the cemetery, and I'm now standing in the oldest part of the cemetery, which dates back to the early 1860s. Now, why would it be important for me to do a survey and have areas on my map that show basic time frames as to when the cemetery was used? Well, we can ask some very interesting questions if we have some of this information. Perhaps I'm interested in knowing why or how children were buried in the early 1860s as opposed to how they were buried in maybe the 1920s or even in 2012. I can do that relatively easily because now I have an idea of where those graves might be associated with each other. Or perhaps I'm interested in how headstones developed over a period of time, how they changed from the early 1800s to the 2000, or even something more specific, maybe how they changed in 1920 over a period of 10 years. I have a much better idea of where I can find those graves. What other information might I want to find while I'm looking through the cemetery? Well, what about groups? Do I see specific surnames all grouped in a general area of the cemetery as opposed to another? What might that tell me? If I see group names that are specific to maybe ethnic groups, maybe I have an influx of people from Chile who came into the area and were buried here. That would be an interesting thing to note. Why and maybe how their customs of burial might be different from what I see around me from other pioneers of the same period. Perhaps I'm interested in social stratification, why some people have much more elaborate burial markers than other people, what that might tell me about that specific time period, about the people who are living here. Or maybe I'm interested in gender. Are women buried differently than men? Do their grave markers denote something particular, or do they have less status than men according to their grave markers as to how elaborate the grave markers might be? Or not? And if we see that, what time periods do we see that in? These are all valid questions, and these are questions that you should be asking yourself as you do your survey of the cemetery, because eventually you're going to need to find your own research question, and you're going to need to use the grave markers that you choose in order to support it.